Yeah, we're
Talk to
good,
me.
man.
How's your family? How have you been?
I left Texas to do my first movie, moved to Nashville, and we just fell in love with it. Yeah,
Unconditional? Is that the unconditional one?
say
Or
again?
Songbird? What is it?
Oh,
Is it
Firebird.
Songbird? What's the one originally? Firebird.
Um,
Firebird.
yeah,
That was cool.
yeah, we just love it here in Tennessee. So, I messed around and got like 15 acres, so I'm a wannabe farmer now. So I have, goats and chickens. I'm a beekeeper.
I would love that.
We have a couple, natural springs on the farm. So ultimately we want to pump water into a cistern from the springs and drink spring water and all that homesteading junk. That's kind of what we're about right now.
Did you ever finish the Airstream? We talked a few years
Yeah,
ago.
I
We
have
got
two
one.
now.
We're gutting it and trying your
I
hand at it.
got all the way through the refurbish with the first one, and now I don't want to mess it up. So I'm think I'm gonna hire a framer, like a real framer, to come in and frame it back in and put the bathroom where it goes in the kitchen and all that. I don't want to mess it up, but as far as like, I pulled the whole thing apart. I mean, just mothered it to death. It's got all new insulation, all new wiring. I pulled the
The
pan.
first one or the second one?
The
Talk about
first
the
one.
first
I
one?
probably won't
How
touch the
big?
second one. I may show somebody how to do it and then let them do it. But man, dude, it was 50,000 times harder than I thought it would be. But she's beautiful. I mean, she's 1970. She'll be one of the nicest 1970s trailers in the world. I mean, right when we're done. So yeah, she's cool. But a lot of work. Yeah, I'm not gonna travel her. She's gonna be more like a studio loft apartment that just stays parked. You could do more stuff, and it's really weird what you have to do if you're gonna travel. So a lot of it's got to be plastic and real lightweight, and everything's got to be like two-thirds scale or half scale. Yeah, even your bathroom. So like, I don't know. I just want to be able to probably put real glass in the showers and stuff like that. So yeah, it would be it would be a huge pain to travel with. She's not going to be built to travel.
I think I told you we converted a school bus into a motorhome. We've traveled 15,000 miles in it probably so far. We're planning to about 6,000 plus this summer. So trying to hit all national parks and hoping to get up to like Canada, to Banff and to Jasper National Park. So it's but yeah, that was fully mobile. I had to build the sucker out from scratch like you had to, but I had to not redo. I had to gut and totally design. But it was a fun experience, and we're making a bunch of memories with it. So it's an Airstream would be nice, but I still have 4 kids at home, and it's just easier to be in an RV or a motorhome, and I can just drive and not have to stop, and it's just, for the most part, they sleep in their beds as I'm driving, which is nice. It's a tank, so it's been.
Yeah, you probably made the right choice. I mean, Airstreams are very beautiful and they're incredible in their own right, and I love them to death. But they leak, and if you drive them enough, like rivets pop out. I mean, they're made with a lot of love and care, but actually a lot of engineering and design flaws as well. And so you really have to love them, and that you can probably find something a little more robust out there. But they're beautiful, man. I crane my neck every time I go by one, on the highway. I'm obsessed with them, So, but yeah, you're probably, for little kids and stuff, you're probably making the right choice.
I have bigger kids now. We started off with little kids. They grow.
Yeah.
Now you have 5 kids. Is that right? Are they
I
grown
do.
now? How old are they? I guess when I
Yeah.
met you back at back toward history, we were back at SMU in the early 2000s together. That's where we met in
Yeah.
film school there, and you had like 5 young ones at the time. So just doing the math, they're older now.
Yeah, my youngest just turned 18.
Wow.
So technically I'm parenting adults now as much as they'll let me, which isn't much after 18. But no, my oldest turned 26, so
Wow.
26 down to 8.
Do
Yeah.
they live locally near you guys?
Right now I've got them all back home. My 2 oldest daughters went to a Christian ministry school in California, and they both have come back. Both of them are musicians, and they get free studio time with Dad here. So so I'm in between scores or whatever. Anybody can use a studio that wants to. So yeah, I'm working on some music with one of my daughters. And then my other daughter has a pretty serious boyfriend. And so she's making a go of it here in Tennessee as well, because that's where he lives. So yeah, we got all 5 kids back. It's pretty hilarious because the farmhouse is really small, so it's a game with sardines right now.
Is that the goal of the RV, the trailers on your property, for them to sleep on when they get back? Going to have like various pods?
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. So one of the daughters is in another trailer that we have, and then when the Airstream gets finished, it'll just turn into a guest house, and it's gonna be really nice. I mean, like nice closets, living room, kitchen, working shower, bathroom. I mean, it's gonna be like a nice guest house, really.
That'd be perfect.
So,
I'd love that. Yeah. So you live what part of Tennessee? Not the Nashville. You live not Jackson. Where do you live?
I live south of Nashville.
South of Nashville?
But in the Nashville area.
Okay.
Yeah, it's about 40 minutes for me to get to the airport, which I like. I like being out in the country, but I got to be close to some good restaurants and a good multiplex and a good airport. So we're out in the country about as much as we can be to still have, some interaction with the modern world out there,
Your most recent film, it did well in the theaters, and I told everyone on their dog to go watch it. So, Jesus Revolution. Tell me a little bit about. I guess this is the second film you worked with a group on that. What's the Irwin Brothers? What is your?
Yeah.
What did you start? You did. I Can Only Imagine. You did the soundtrack for that, and some directing extra spots. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've actually done a lot with them. I worked with them on a movie prior to that called Woodlawn, which I edited with one of the directors, Andy. Andy and I edited that one, and I ended up doing some music on Woodlawn. That was 2014, and then we all had such a good experience together that they let me do more on I Can Only Imagine. So I actually wrote I Can Only Imagine with John, edited again with Andy. I was the second unit director, and I helped produce all of the band music, all the Mercy Me music with Paul Mills, and then they let me score the whole movie too. So I was back to my old SMU days of wearing 8 hats on. It was fun. It was definitely fun. And then I've actually done a lot more with those guys. I've done some ghost directing. I've done multiple scores with them, and so I think Jesus Revolution was more like my 7th project with them. Yeah. And so yeah, man, Jesus Revolution was cool. John Irwin actually discovered the bones of Jesus Revolution when we were working on Woodlawn, because it was a similar time period. And he came in with that psychedelic Jesus Time magazine cover from 1971. He's like, guys, this is a movie in here. And we're like, whoa, that's crazy. And from there, I started doing a bunch of research, and we all got real excited about it. I discovered that Chuck Smith had fought really hard to allow the hippies to come into his church and wash their feet, and all that stuff that's in the movie is real. It really happened. And when I read that, I said, John, we could mess up every scene in this movie, but if we get this scene right where he's trying to fight and advocate for the hippies, then we'll have a beautiful movie. And so that was 7 or 8 years ago, and in typical fashion, it fell apart a few times. Lionsgate got involved with the pipeline of all of John and stuff, which is great, but they were more excited about some of the other titles we were working on. So they down prioritized it, and they're like, hey, just do these few, and then you can do Jesus Revolution, which that was right. We wanted to go right after I Can Only Imagine, but they wanted to do other stuff, and we acquiesced at that point. Then it came back around again, and the guy who wrote it with John Irwin, he's an amazing director as well. His name is John Gunn, but he wanted to do it. Lionsgate approved. They were going to shoot the entire thing in LA, and they had it ready to go. They had locations, they had costumes, they had their schedule, they had people hired, they had a production of it, they had everything. They were going to shoot in 2 weeks, and the pandemic hit, and Lionsgate shut down all production across the entire globe. And so it went away again. But when it came back the third time, I was available, and I'm really grateful because I got to direct this thing and be a big part of it. I got to score the music again. So I did the entire score. I was in charge of finding all of the period music as well. So I had a couple great music supervisors, one at Lionsgate and one working for us. And and my daughters found some cool music that they threw my way. But I came up with like an 8-hour playlist of music from the time, and then the editors used that playlist to pull music into the actual movie. And everybody really rallied around this idea that we were going to put a lot of great music into the film, and it was expensive, but everybody kind of caught the vision, and I don't know, man, I probably got 85% of the music that I wanted in the movie. So
It was expensive, meaning buying the rights to the songs for the movie?
yeah, no, we had to let go. Just to give you an idea, a couple of them that I had to let go of were $500,000.
Oh, wow.
Like, we got the quote back, and they're like, yeah, it's $500,000, and they're not going to come off of it. And I was like,
okay,
well,
bye-bye.
There goes those. So,
wow.
But it was cool, man. You know, we would go back to the drawing board in those particular cases, and oftentimes end up with something as good or better. So yeah.
As far as the orchestration for it, what do you write music with on what programs, and what's your typical flow for writing? How does it work when you sit down and watch the scene and you just kind of feel it and then write it? Or do you have a library of tunes that you want to tweak and make into final works? How does that work for you?
Yeah, no, I start from scratch. So we definitely do it in a traditional way for the most part. So most of my scores have been what's called scoring to picture, but the editors will use temp score. So they might pull something from Finding Nemo or Inception, and it's really intimidating because these are like $1 million scores or more, and they're putting them in. You're like, oh man, dude, I have like a baby 0.001 fraction of this budget. You know, how do I do it? But it's great because it's kind of setting the high jump bar really high, you know. So yeah, you come in and hear like this beautiful music on something, and then you strip that away, you turn the temp score off, and then you interpret the scene in the same spirit as you would, like if it's sad or melancholy or uplifting, or it's like the mood. It's like a mood board. So
you listen to the music. You listen to that music they put in for a holding spot and kind of see what they're going with there, and try to find something similar in the feel.
Correct. Yeah, and oftentimes the temp score will encourage you or kind of push you in a direction, because sometimes the time meter is working. You know, if it's like a slow 3/4, if it's a fast 6/8, or whatever the time signature is, you're like, oh, okay, that kind of works. And then you just strip it away and maybe build a similar time construct. You know, because the editors, rightly or wrongly, are using the temp to build their cadence to everything. And so oftentimes the temp of the cadence is the cadence of the temp rather is going to inform what you do. But yeah, you strip it away and you make it your own and do different chords. And, you know, I try to just write what moves me, but I don't start with any, I start from scratch. I don't start with any like pre-made music. And
you just sit and watch the scene a bunch of times to see what hits you, and then start writing.
Yeah, I use a program that was acquired by Apple probably 25 years ago, but it's called Logic.
Yeah.
You
still use Logic?
I do, yeah. I have since the beginning. I've used it for 30 years now.
Yeah.
And I had it when it was by this company in Denmark called eMagic.
Yep, I remember that.
And they had it cross-threaded for PCs and Macs. And then when Apple bought it, it was a huge uproar because Apple deplatformed PC and just made it a Mac program, and it broke the internet for a few weeks. But anyway,
yes, it did.
I was worried they were gonna do what they did to Final Cut, and they really destroyed Final Cut.
They did.
I
take you don't use Final Cut. You use Premiere?
I do not. Yeah, I use Premiere.
Yeah, same here.
So yeah, but no, they kept the bones of Logic. Like, it's the exact same original programming from eMagic, and it's a very deep software. You can do a lot with it, and but it's good, man. It's good for score. You can bring in, like you were saying, you bring in your scenes. You got the time code the editors put on it, and you sync it up perfectly in your machine to the time code. So the Logic time code will move with the exact scene of the film's time code, and then you build some kind of grid that makes you happy as a musician, some kind of 4/4 grid or 6/8 grid, 3/4 grid, figure out your tempo and noodle around on a piano. Usually for me, I'm probably best when I play piano, so I'll noodle around
Like
on
an
a piano.
acoustic piano or like a keyboard. What are you talking about?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm here. I'm actually here in
I
my
could tell.
studio.
Yeah.
So my
I would love to see it.
this is my it's a Prophet 6,
That's an old
but
sucker.
I use it. Actually, it's a reissue, but it's
Okay.
old. It's an old architecture board.
Okay.
But I used it for a synthesizer, but I also use it as my controller. So
Okay.
yeah, and then I have tons of software synth stuff in the box in the machine behind me.
Like orchestration packs and different instruments.
Yeah.
My second-born son's getting more and more into that. I've my 2 kids in high school are both. Well, the one's been the marching band. He's percussionist, so he does merman's xylophone and did snare drum in the marching band last year. So I'm babysitting a baby grand piano for our church, so it's been really nice having that in the house and hearing music and going down playing for an hour and just it's been really nice. And then go back to keyboards when the time comes too. But
yeah, and we have some acoustic instruments. I have a couple pipe organs in the room next door, and we have an upright piano. So, like, if I'm really, really deep diving, I will take the time and the care to drag my microphones out there and try to. So I've used one of the pipe organs in a score before, and but it's a huge pain because it's a bedroom studio, so it's like pretty meager.
So this is at your house.
I mean,
this is your studio at your house.
It's in my bedroom. You know, I mean, like I have to. If my wife wants to go to bed, I have to go on headphones and listen real quiet. If I'm
been
working
there.
So, yeah, which is funny. And then the dream at the farm is to have another house where I can get this little house and just use it for if editors want to come work at the house, or if I wanted to use the big room to track drums or whatever, and then put a big glass panel back here so you can see into the other room, you know. So that's the dream, but that's that's way in the future if it ever does happen, you know. So but yeah, man, I mean, if I do a lot of things on movies, but if I got relegated just to doing one thing, I think I would score.
Okay.
I'm a musician.
Yeah, same here.
And before I'm a filmmaker even, and I use all my musical instincts, rightly or wrongly, to inform what I do, even when I direct or when I write. There's a cadence, there's a rhythm, there's a poetry, there's the dynamism of when to go loud and when to be quiet, and when to rest, when to not make any sound. Like, not making any sound is a musical choice too, you know. So I use all of those musical things I've picked up over the years to even talk to actors and edit scenes and write dialogue. It's there's a lot of I would say commonality there for sure.
Who's your favorite composer, film composer, or your top few come to mind?
Thomas Newman for sure. He actually taught me how to score. Not directly, I don't know the guy, but I figured out what kind of composer I wanted to be, and the kind of composer that I wanted to be is Thomas Newman. So I could get people on your show and interview them and be like, hum something, hum a theme from Thomas Newman, and they'd be like, what movies has he done? Like, most people don't even know the movies, but they know how they feel when they watch a film that he scored. And I was like, wow, I don't really need to be known for the music or how busy it was or how complicated or intricate it was, because I honestly can't do a lot of that. I'm self-taught for the most part. I was in jazz band in high school. I actually wasn't that good. But I loved a lot of the 80s. I was a piano player.
Okay.
Yeah. So Thomas Newman blows me away because he just gives you a feeling. And he's a storyteller. So all of his music tells these beautiful stories, and he knows what kind of music to put into a scene, how much is too much, how little is too little. It's like he's got this liquid score in a jar. He just knows how much to pour in. He knows exactly when to stop. And it's always so interesting and unique, and it definitely holds up musically if you listen to the scores by themselves. But the guy doesn't have any music prowess, weird ego things to prove. He's just like, what's the best music for this? And he's been nominated like 16 times for an Oscar. I think he's only won one in his entire career, which is shameful to me, man. Like he is one of our great, but he's very quiet and he's no frills, and he's not necessarily a composer's composer. All the other composers like look up to the big manic guys like John Williams and some of these other dudes. They're just like, like they just, it's so manic and crazy, and it's so technically accurate and technically amazing. And Thomas Newman's stuff is more quiet and tranquil and very ambient. And I just love that he prioritizes story over music. And he's taught me a lot, man.
Do you find yourself going to one key more than others when writing?
I've heard Hans Zimmer say that.
Yeah, I know.
I don't.
That's good. He said he does everything in D. I'm like, okay, whatever. I was curious if you do the same.
That was a head scratcher for me.
Yeah.
When Thomas Newman said that, I was like, wow, he gravitates towards a key. I think I don't. I mean, what, dude? I can't say anything negative about that guy. He's not talking stuff. He has one of my favorite scores that I've ever listened to. The Interstellar score like changed my life. I mean, that guy's done amazing stuff. But no, I didn't resonate with that part of his story at all.
I was just curious.
Every has a different vibe.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I think D is an interesting key. It probably is a little bit magical. He probably finds just the registers, especially when he's trying to do something dark, just hit the right frequencies. But I mean, a key that you set it in does make a difference. So maybe he's found some of his special magic sauce using D a lot, which I don't contend with that at all.
Yeah,
it works for him.
Yeah, exactly. Good for him.
But I think he also hits on something else very important there is you can't really just take what someone else is telling you to do and go do it because it will fail. You've got to find
100%
what for you and what resonates for you in the way that you approach your music and your composing, for sure.
Have you enjoyed directing? You talked about composing more. Do you like directing? And what do you like about it when you do?
Well, I love directing. I've grown a lot in the last 7 years. When I first started my career, I was white knuckling everything, and I felt like I needed to control everything. And it was actually a bit of a spiritual issue, like a spiritual problem. I think I had a control problem. I think maybe even I was afraid of dying. I know it sounds really crazy and deep, but like just trying to control everything in my whole life. But as we know, control is an illusion, and you are going to die. And any control that you think you have is temporary. And it doesn't last. And so I think when you write and direct and you score, you're trying to control this little sandbox world, and it feels like you're in charge of this little kingdom and able to move all these pieces around and kind of make them do what you want them to do in this story and make your story in the way that you see fit. But, but in the end, it's escapist and cool, and maybe you learn something thematically about yourself or about the world or about the people around you or even about God. And so I really do still love that part of it. But yeah, directing for me is different, man. I show up a lot more open-handed. I've just changed a lot spiritually in the last few years. So it's very collaborative. It's a very, very awesome process of discovery, I think. And so we discovered a lot of amazing things on the set with the actors in Jesus Revolution, but we created an atmosphere that allowed us. Well, sometimes an actor will come in and go, I don't really think they would say that right here. Like they're living in the skin of the characters. So like, you don't want to presume just because you're directing it or you wrote it or whatever the case is that you know better than these guys because they're living with that character ultimately longer than you probably did. And then actually inside the skin of that character. And so so yeah, I really perk up. I listen to actors when they start advocating, like, hey, I think they would maybe do it this way, or could we add this line because I think they would say something rude right here, whatever. And I love that kind of discovery process with actors, and actually listening as opposed to a director who's like, no, this is the way I wrote it, just say it the way I said it. I know I'm not about that anymore.
I think it was Robert Altman who said 85% of directing a film is getting the right actors. So it's like when you trust them to do their job that you hired them for, the film will be made correctly. I think it might have been Joel Schumacher, but I'm pretty sure it was Robert Altman, which makes a lot of sense. If you trust your actors, especially if they have a track record of something you can rest in, maybe new people not as much, but maybe so. But yeah, I haven't directed as big of projects as you have yet. Maybe the time will come. So, but yeah, trusting them and listening to them, I think it goes a long way for them to respect you. I would think for them to understand, to feel respected and grateful for their work. I think that would go over well on a set. But once again, you've been on bigger sets than I have, so it seems like it.
Yeah, it's such a collaborative process, and the directors that frustrate me the most are the directors that walk out and take an outsized amount of credit for the entire process, because the truth of the matter is, you probably worked with 400 to 1,000 of some of the greatest artisans in the world, if you're lucky, and many of them more talented than you, with better ideas than you, and so to stand on everybody's head and say, I did this, to me, it's profane, dude. So the analogy I always use is, if you got on a 500-person crew pirate ship and you were the guy that got to hold the wheel, that ship's going nowhere. It's not leaving the port without 400 or 500 of the greatest pirates that you could possibly hire at that port. And you better hire some great people, or else the storm's going to take your ship apart. And even the captain has to sleep. So who's piloting the ship when you're asleep? You know what I mean? It's just like, it's a very collaborative endeavor, and everybody has very specific jobs. And so it's very much a group collaborative pirate ship endeavor, at least in my book. And so I'm very quick to thank the team and the cast and the crew, because without them, you go nowhere. And so, yeah, on Jesus Rev, it was the best cast and crew I've ever had a chance to work with. And you just see it, man.
Yeah.
It shows up in the work. It was awesome to be a part of it. But yeah, man, to finish, to kind of complete the circuit, probably 20 of the places where you laugh in the movie are ad-lib, just stuff actors threw at us. Like,
it was funnier than I was expecting, to be honest. It was. I laughed a lot. I cried in it. I think the older I got, I lost both my parents in the last, since I met you. And it's just kind of like as I get older, I get a little more emotional sometimes when watching things. And maybe it's being a parent. Maybe it's being, but yeah, there are times. And I told my daughter I'm going to visit with you today. And she said, tell my 12-year-old, tell him I really liked the movie. Which is coming a large praise from her. She's like, tell him I really liked it. And my kids did. We make sure we went all together and watched it. But it was, it was powerful. And it obviously struck a nerve nationwide. And it wasn't just, there's several friends of mine, Facebook friends, who are not believers. And they said, I don't go to religious movies, but this one was really good. And he said someone told him to go to it. And it was like, I heard that a lot from people. And I'm like, that's actually pretty cool. But yeah.
That's kind of what I bring to it. I mean, obviously at the production company, they've made a living, and a bunch of people have done really well. I mean, there's tons of people that, it's a studio, man. They employ a lot of people, and people are depending on these movies. And I think their big mantra there is craft stuff is good entertainment for Christians. But for me, I feel like you can actually thread a needle where it entertains Christians, but it goes wider than that.
Oh, yeah.
The quality high enough. and it's a human, universal story that people can resonate with. And so, I think with Jesus Revolution, I think it definitely broke out and transcended just being good Christian entertainment, which it was.
It
Um,
was, but yeah,
but
I think
beyond
it's
that,
was it Nelson
I think,
Trueblood who said, "Holy shoddy, still shoddy." And a lot of times people want to go to these Christian movies, and it's nice to support them, but if they're like lousy movies, or like, let's make something good, good quality. That, but it takes money, it takes time, it takes the studio, it takes a lot. And I'm happy that you were able to bring at least one story, and I assume you're working on others now. Or you have other ones in the pike coming
we
along.
will, yeah, we will at some point. It's really weird, man, what happened because everybody in Hollywood is betting against dramas right now, or betting against low budget films. They're betting against one-off movies. So there was a lot of negativity stacked against Jesus Revolution and Cocaine Bear. They were both, if you look at them, even though they're on the opposite sides of the ideological spectrum, they were the same movie in a lot of ways. So they were
I
low
haven't seen
budget movies.
Cocaine Bear.
Yeah, they were low budget movies targeted at very specific niche audiences, and both of them did 4 or 5 times the industry and trade predictions. And so everybody on our side was just, everybody's paused. Even Lionsgate was paused because both of those movies were really almost litmus tests of where audiences are right now going to the movie theaters.
Yeah.
The American cinema is still really hemorrhaging right now.
Post-COVID?
It started before COVID, and then COVID almost like put the nails in the coffin. I mean, it's taken a lot to get people to come back. And so yeah, man, to see a couple of low budget movies, targeted specific audiences, not based on any very large IP, do well, I think was a great signal to the industry, to cinema, to the exhibition theaters and all that stuff. So yeah, man, I'm glad that it did well.
Yeah.
And I think that I think that more movies like this will be on the way. But all that to say, to answer your question, we pushed pause on everything just to see what Jesus Revolution is going to do. So now that it's done well, we definitely think we'll get to do some more stuff with good budgets. And so yeah, man, I will know in the next 4 to 6 months what I'm doing, but I think my next movie will probably be with Lionsgate and Kingdom again, and something that's faith friendly, faith adjacent, that hopefully breaks out again.
Have other studios contacted you? Have they reached out and said, "Hey, why don't you come direct fill in the blank movie for us"?
No, not really.
Okay. They should. But stay on Lionsgate. They're treating you well. Yeah, interesting. What y'all shoot?
Yeah, I would say I feel like. Go ahead.
No, I was asking what as a geek side of filmmaking, what y'all shot the most of the principal photography on. I'm assuming it's not film. Those days are probably gone for the most part. But like,
yes, but ironically, you have a ton of film lovers on this particular project, and so we discussed shooting it on film.
Yeah.
We had to let it go. It was just too scary.
Heartbreaking. Well, I know.
Yeah. So we shot on 2 Alexa Minis, and they're the new sensor, the new chip. I can't remember they're called. I think they're called LFs or LX. I can't remember.
The Alexa or the new Sony?
Yeah, they're Alexa Mini, and they're the new chip, which it's got an L in the title somewhere.
Okay.
But then what we did to really help it along was the cinematographer was adamant that we only use vintage glass, so we used
only glass. Okay.
In the early 70s, and it really, really changed our look and made it look cool. And then on top of that, this colorist is a film grain guru.
Okay.
And he sampled all these grains, like real film grains. He sampled them. And so when we went into color, he's like, is it Kodachrome? Is it whatever? And so yeah, we were able to really experiment and lay organic grain, not digital grain, but actually organic sampled film grain over the whole thing. And yeah, man, it gave it just a really beautiful vintage,
It did.
polished, just veneer. It just gave it this beautiful uh, feeling of vintage, and so we worked really hard to get that look, even though we did ultimately have to relegate ourselves to digital acquisition.
But in this day and age, it's easier, still a lot easier, and a lot cheaper. You can see if you got the shot you needed. It speeds up the process.
Yeah.
But yeah, have you shot on film since last few days, or is that pretty much?
Let me think. I don't think I have, man. I don't think I ever shot anything in my real career. I mean, I shot those two student films on 16 millimeter,
Yep.
and that was it. Oh, well, no, there have been a couple little cheats that you would appreciate. So all of the stuff where he's shooting his 8 millimeter, we really had an 8 millimeter camera. So a lot of that stuff was real 8 millimeter that we sent to a lab in LA and got developed. So there was,
So you brought that in the film. So we're actually seeing 8 millimeter. It wasn't just a faked digital version of it.
That's right. We had a real 8 millimeter camera, and we'd throw it to one of the camera guys, or sometimes I would even be like, let the actors do it. Cause I thought the camera guy wouldn't do it like bad enough. I thought he would like hold it real still. I'm like, hey guys, this is home movies. We're not holding a close up. Oh yeah. I felt like I have to keep reminding everybody to shoot it badly, but they did good. No, they got it. Like, especially when I remind them, it seemed like they have it be kind of more like a handheld amateur vibe. But yeah, it was real 8 millimeter that we developed and put in, digitized and put back into the movie.
That's cool. What advice would you give? I've talked to some kids around here in the high school nearby, and I'm going to sit down with the director of fine arts for our district. What advice would you give young kids in filmmaking world and want to be digital storytellers? You've obviously made it you've been successful in your endeavors. I went a different route. I didn't go to LA and wait tables, and I didn't make the festival circuit as a young, right out of school like you did. I did like documentaries and corporate videos, and I still want to go back into your world and be, narrative storytelling. But what advice would you give a young kid if someone's watching this to say, or a high school kid who loves storytelling? What would you tell them?
Yeah. Well, I'd like to say a lot of things based on what you said. First of all, please thank your kids profusely for going to see the movie and the kind words.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, a lot.
Yeah.
I really tried to make this for a younger audience that would hopefully go see it, because I wanted it to show people that there's a loving, kind, inclusive, generous, compassionate way forward, even in the church. So I'm appreciative that your kids went to see it, and please thank them.
Of course.
As to like what you did, we're not as far apart as you thought, man. Like I
I don't know about that.
Well, I've had a lot of heartbreak, man. I mean, the majority of my career has been heartbreak, and I've shot a lot of corporate and industrial stuff over the years to pay the bills and make ends meet. I shot an industrial 2 weeks ago in Houston. So a lot, you will, for most people, you're going to have to find a way to exist in the world financially to support your indie film habit, and not really expect your indie film habit to ever get to a place where it's going to pay all your bills all the time, because it may not. So just to bring some harder truth, I guess, I've only worked on 2 movies. I've been doing this for like 25 years now, almost 30. I've only worked on 2 movies that have even made their money back. I mean, it is a dark, sad, terrible, ominous landscape out there. And if you get to work on anything that makes its money back, or let alone a hit, I mean, dude, you're a very fortunate human being. I definitely feel very fortunate, and I hold it all really loosely, but I also have a lot of gratitude because, dude, there are people 10,000 times more talented than me that will never see a hit, So yeah, I would say buckle in for the long haul and have some sobriety looking at it, and don't think you're gonna go out and conquer when you're 23. If you do, write a book, because I would like to know how you did it. The truth of the matter is Hollywood doesn't know what hits are, they they kind of know maybe what the ingredients are, but you throw the ingredients in a lasagna pan over and over again. You bake it in the oven, you put it out there, and oftentimes it just tastes terrible, and you don't really know what it is. You kind of know what the ingredients are, but you don't know how to make the dish, And so yeah, man, it's just amazing when you do get a hit, and it shouldn't make you cocky. It should make you humble and
Grateful. Yeah.
grateful. Yes, which
So
it has.
what do you think of the world of online streaming, the Netflix and Amazon, a Paramount? Do you like what they're doing, or you think it's messing up the film world?
Well, both. um,
Yeah.
I love streaming.
Yes,
I love
and
streaming. Well, yes, both and right. I love streaming. I love that it's. I mean, some great filmmakers are out there because if you look at Stranger Things, there's no commercials. They can make one episode 47 minutes 13 seconds, and then the next one is 52 minutes 14. The moment they get to edit, they're like, "Stop! It's perfect. Stop."
I like that.
It's not like, okay, we got 13 minutes and 30 seconds to the first commercial, and then you've got to just cram, whatever that first.
I like.
Yeah. So to have that, I don't know, man, that really free form, inclusive, it feels like it really is complimentary of a creative brain and a creative team where you're not expected to hit a certain benchmark with your time frames or your act breaks, your act structures. I think it's very cool. I love binge watching. I think it's the new resurgence of television.
Yes.
Television in the golden age of TV almost dunked cinema. And
okay.
people forget about that, but that's when you got all the really crazy stuff happening. Like they continued to make movies in Technicolor. The 3D came out, CinemaScope, all the crazy super wide stuff because they were trying to do all these gimmicky things to
get you back.
To say, hey, TV can't do these things. TV can't do what we do at the cinema, right? And so I think we're in a similar time. I actually think tentpole movies are choking out cinema as well. So
what are you cut out for a second? What movies?
I think tentpole movies are choking out cinema too. So you've got the pandemic, you've got streaming. You also have, I believe, if I get assassinated, it's because of this statement I'm about to make. So if news that I got assassinated, this is why. But no, the exhibitionists, man, the actual theater chains, the multiplexes need to work a lot harder on their quality. Because if you go into a smaller theater, oftentimes it's too quiet. The bulb is dim. They actually have focus, the projector, it's blurry.
Oh, I know.
I'm like, guys, here's what
people
happens.
People are talking in it, and they won't. It's in front of you talking. Well, it hadn't happened in a while because I don't go often to the theater anymore. But I'm like, I'd rather sit at home and watch it than have someone talking in front of me.
Yeah, so they have a pretty important lesson to learn, but it's so experiential. So during the pandemic, the middle class people who save up, let's say $5,000 for a ski trip or whatever, they couldn't do it. Well, they did one of two things. They put in an above ground pool, or they put in the most rocking home theater system you could imagine. And this accountant dude has his room tuned up better than a lot of the small multiplex theaters are tuned up. So until the exhibitions really start focusing on the highest quality possible, I think people would just, like you, would just prefer to sit home and watch it. It's perfectly tuned up. It's going to be quiet. The projector is sharp and the bulb is not dim, and you can control the volume. So yeah, dude, it's really sad. I mean, I've had to walk out of many, many theaters and tell them to turn it up or sharpen the projector, or they need to change the bulb. And dude,
I've been in a theater where the bulb popped in the middle of the screen. The movie that was back in old film days, and they had to like sorry, it's over because they can't start over, hit replay again. So I'm like, oh, that's nice. Here you can come back. I'm like, I'm never gonna watch this again. I'm done.
Yeah.
So,
but I love the cinema. I'll keep going to the movie. I think, not to get too philosophical, but there's something very primal about going to a cinema and experiencing a story together. It is the closest thing that we have to a modern cave painting experience. And so the first art that we know of, these artisans found a flat wall in a dark cave, and they probably painted it by torchlight because there wouldn't have been sunlight in there. So they walked in with torchlight. Imagine the projector and the light dancing on the wall. And I could imagine them recounting, like taking down a mammoth to the children and to a children's imagination. Suddenly those pictures are moving, And so I don't know. There's something very spiritual and ancient and primal about going to a movie theater. And I don't think it's going to go away. But I definitely think we're in another time where they're going to have to reinvent themselves and entice people back, just like in the golden age of television. And
people like Cameron have tried to do like 3D, but 3D just is not the same thing for me. And watching it, I don't enjoy it as much. But they keep on trying. I think and I'll keep it going, keep trying until get people back.
Yeah. I think to go back to your other question, I didn't really answer it, but like to the young kids out there that want to do this, I would just encourage you to make stuff. Like, it's going to be bad when you start. Watch a lot of YouTubes of people that actually are doing it. Don't watch the people that say they've done it. Hey, I'm a such and such, and I made this. No, like, get on the master classes, and if you want to score, look at Hans Zimmer. If you want to direct, look at Martin Scorsese's masterclass. Like really get with the people that have done it and have done well, and then go out and make stuff over and over again. And one of the masterclasses that I really appreciate, it's a guy in Texas who makes beef brisket. And in his trailer, he said he looked at the camera and he said, if you want to make great brisket, first, you're going to have to make a lot of bad brisket.
Yes.
You're going to burn a lot of brisket. You're going to make terrible tasting meat. But if you stay with the process, you'll ultimately make great brisket. And so your first films will be bad, and it's okay. Your first draft of your scripts will be bad. That's okay. Iterate. And what I mean by iteration is in every instance of that word. So iterate in your screenwriting. Don't just be happy with your first version. Like, show it to friends, let other people read it. They may burn it down, they may trash it. So at that point, you can either quit, move on to another movie, or you can rewrite. And my advocation for you would be to rewrite it. I am a bad writer on my first draft, and I'm a great writer on my 8th draft. So learn that, right? Trust the process. Like, trust that if you iterate through, you get your bad draft out, and you iterate through that, and you tweak it 7 or 8 more times, then you've got something decent you could actually go out and shoot.
How often are you writing now? I mean, you've written a lot of screenplays, or a good bit of them.
Yeah, no, I
like weekly. Are we sitting down and doing short stories and see if they're worth making into something bigger?
No, I don't have a writing practice per se. But I'm not a good person to ask about that because I'm a real strange animal. I really am. And so what helps me keep my sanity is, like, I went out and directed, right? I directed Jesus Revolution. Then I came back, took some time off. I got in the edit bay with my editor, and I edited with him probably 25-30% of the movie uncredited. So I just got in there and helped him catch up. And
we're talking about like 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day? Or were you sitting until it was done? Yeah.
No, we try to keep... I used to be really out of control in my work-life balance. I'm really trying to stay more balanced now in my life. So yeah, 8-10-hour days is what we did.
Okay.
And then I went from there into VFX and color and score. And so I like to move through my verticals and put things down. And then you come back, you kick the rust off. But for some reason, when I come back to directing after I've gone through all my other verticals, my tank is filled back up. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm ready to direct again. But if I just kind of stayed in everything all the time, it would just be way too much multitasking, and I think I would burn out. So it's nice to set one thing down, leave it. Like, I probably won't get back to directing for a year. And so hopefully my tank will be full by the time I return to that. But no, like, writing as a practice is great. If you want to be a writer, you definitely need to be writing at least every week, if not every day, even if it's just a paragraph. Like, if you just want to write, you should be in it all the time. But yeah, man, beyond that, for me and the festival circuit, like you said, I, when I was young, I had run off in the woods with my non-filmmaker friends every weekend, and I
Mm-hmm.
would go work to the best of my ability. I'd work on crew. I would, shoot corporate
Yep.
and whatever. But then on the weekend,
Yep.
man, I would beg and borrow and steal gear, steal cameras. I would ingratiate myself to studios and be like, "Hey, I'll come work for free on the weekends. Can I borrow some gear?" And
Yep.
yeah, sure. So
Yep.
I would barter and work the time off and get some gear. But by the
Gosh,
time,
nowadays it's so much easier to get the good equipment. It's
yeah,
so much easier to find than back when we were younger.
that's true.
Um,
Yeah. So the final thing I would say is, you've got to make stuff, and in the same way that you would iterate on a script over and over again, you need to just iterate on yourself as a creative. So your first short film probably won't be that great, but you
mhm.
really need to get people around you going, well, this is crap because you didn't light it and you didn't
Yeah.
use an audio package. You got all the sound on your iPhone. That don't fly. Like, but if you submit yourself to the process and let other people speak into it that actually know what they're doing, you can be like, okay, on the next one, I don't know how to light. So maybe I should ask my friend over here who loves to light, and he's actually a working gaffer. If this one,
Yeah.
even though he's not a DP, maybe he can come DP this if he wanted to. And I could set the shots that I wanted, but he could come in and light it. So there's an iterative process just to you as an artist as well. And you'll iterate through your actual project. And hopefully, if you're on that train, right, if you've committed to that, hopefully 10 years later, you look back and just see how bad your initial work was. That's what you want to see. You don't want to look back 10 years and go, oh man, all my stuff's amazing. Like, that would scare me really bad. Like, I look back at the stuff I did even 2 years ago, and I'm like, oh man, why did I
Yeah.
make those choices? Why that drags, or that's too cutty, or like but what that tells me is I'm growing. Like, I'm still on a path of progression and growing, and I can look back, hopefully not with a lot of judgment, but with some observations and go, okay, today I would do that differently because I know this and this and this now that I didn't know back then. So just know that you're actually iterating uh, through life as an artist if you do it right.
Do you watch your completed films? Have you seen Jesus Revolution since it was finished editing?
I will generally watch it once, and sometimes you have to, like in color or playback. You have to
Okay.
watch playback for color. You have to watch it in playback for the mix, and you want to watch that uninterrupted and make sure, because when you mix, there's a dynamic range, so sometimes the dialogue is quiet and then the car crashes
Yeah.
are really loud or whatever. So you want to make sure
Yeah.
all that feels right and make sure you didn't have a scene too loud or too quiet in context. And so yeah, but after that, man, especially when you edit, and I was the director in charge of being there day to day, getting the edit done and getting it down to less than 2 hours. And
Yeah.
so man, dude, we went on a road show and we played it for hundreds of pre-screens, hundreds. And I walk up, I introduce the movie, and I walk out and go find a coffee
Yeah.
shop or go get dinner with a friend in Utah or whatever, wherever we're showing.
Yeah.
Like, but by the time, if you're the director or the editor who's seen the movie hundreds of times in pieces, you're,
You're done.
yeah, you're done. I would, there
So
were a couple Christian colleges they played it for, and the audience was so hyped that I went and just stood in the back just to be with.
and watch the.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was fun. But just to watch the movie over and over again, no. I mean, and it's wild because I'm already seeing stuff that I would have done differently.
Oh
Like
yeah.
when I do see it, I'm like, oh, man, and I've already talked to the editor, and he's like, oh, you're right, So yeah, man.
It's like it's too late though.
No,
Let's-
you'll never get it perfect. At least for
no.
me, I don't think anything I do will ever be perfect. And I don't really think it needs to be, and I don't really have that ambition. I think I want, for me, especially when you're working with deadlines and studios and money's a factor, you have to make it as good as you possibly can within the time allotted, and then you actually have to let it go. So I always say it's like raising a kid. Your
Hmm.
kid, when they go out into the world at 18 or 22, whenever they go, they are not going to be perfect. They are not. And
Yeah.
they've got to go out, find their own way, make their own mistakes, learn their way of being in the world. And like at some point you just have to let them go out into the world as they are. And so I really feel like that with my movies, like there are these imperfect things that go out in the world, and hopefully they'll find some friends and find some footing and find a beautiful place in the world, but they're their own thing. You have to let them go. And at a certain time, at a certain time for sure.
So true. So true. The example you gave earlier of the captain of the pirate ship, I'm reminded as a Christian, the Bible says we're all members of the same body. We all have different parts we do. So in anything in life, we're not all one thing. We all have to have a foot. We have to have an arm. We have to have the eyes. We have to have. So I just was harking back to that as a director of a film like this. There's many parts to that moving, and the same with any job or someone's working somewhere. They're all part of the same organization trying to make it happen.
Yes, man. It's that scripture is really crazy because it's a piece of poetry that speaks to the interconnectedness of human beings, but also just the world around us. And so we suffer a lot when we try to do it on our own.'re not meant to be that way. As a matter of fact, like one of the fastest ways to mental illness and self-destruction and even suicide is isolation. So when you have when you see a kid at school who's really isolating, or one of your own kids, they're really isolating, that is a huge indicator that there's something wrong. We're not
That's
meant
a good point.
to do this alone. You're not meant to create an isolation. And I think that's why I love movies so much is
collaboration.
Yeah, it's a collaborative sport, man. It is a team sport. I guess you can paint by yourself, but even then, like you're going out in the world, you're having experiences, you're figuring out what you want to paint. Writing is a solo thing, but for me as a screenwriter, it's ultimately not. It's going to be this giant thing that everybody, participates in. And even the way I write is solo because I share my pages with a ton of people because I want it to get burned down. So even when I write, it's collaborative. And
I think that's one thing I miss the most about my video production company has been pretty much me doing everything just because it keeps more money in my pocket for the most part. For like a corporate video of something, but the collaboration of working with people there's something that's important about that.
Yeah, no, the same thing as you. Yeah. Sometimes you don't have that luxury. Sometimes you have to keep all that margin, because
sometimes my kids like to eat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I've been there before too. I've shot a bunch of stuff on my own. I would say it's not the best way, but sometimes it's necessary for sure.
Yep, exactly. But it's good. All that to say, it's good to have collaboration. It's good to work with people and not be alone. We're not made to be alone. We're made to be with people.
You're right.
I think that's the worst thing that came out of the whole entire COVID thing was the separation of people. I was like, that is not good. That is not good for people to be. It's not good for man to be alone. Go back to Genesis.
Yeah.
We need to be together, and that's important. And that's cool about the filmmaking process for you, and that you have a family and a wife, and it's but yeah, the process of creating with a group of people is pretty awesome. So
and I'm an odd duck. I'm weird. I literally had to put in.
You are.
I had to put in a formal request for my whole family to walk the red carpet with me, and it was hilarious because it was like a giant
Oh, I saw pictures. It was awesome.
A giant army of us walked on it, and it hacked off all the photographers. They had to back away.
Who gives a darn?
I know it didn't. I didn't care. It was great. But
yeah, it's not about the photographer. It's about your family. So it's like it doesn't matter what they think.
Yeah, it was just funny to see them get frustrated because it was such a giant group. They didn't know what to.
Oh yeah.
I thought it was great. I thought it was. I'm with.
That's awesome.
I thought it was funny.
Kudos to you.
It frustrated them. It was funny because they just weren't used to having 15 people in a shot together.
That's awesome. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy for you on that. Thanks for your time. I feel like I'm missing things I wanted to talk to you about, but maybe we can do this again sometime.
Oh, we will. Dude.
Yeah, for sure. And if I'm up in your direction, I will definitely look you up. We drove through Nashville. Yeah, we did go through Nashville last summer, but you were probably off shooting somewhere at the time. We drove our bus down to the Florida Keys, then up to Colorado and down again. So it was a fun, long road trip.
What'd you do? What'd you do at the Keys?
I wanted to see them because I hadn't been there before.
Yeah.
Have you been to the Keys?
I have not. I really want to go. I want to.
So I was expecting. I mean, I grew up in Texas. So I expected everything to look like the Gulf and like Galveston because that's where I grew up going to. And it was definitely not. It was like glass. There was no waves because it's all these islands that separate the waves. So just clear, peaceful. It was nice. So we just stayed in an RV park right on the water because we can. They don't have to stay in a hotel. So it's like you're there with nature. These little bugs were biting the tar out of our legs. It took me months to get over the bug bites. But other than that, it was beautiful. And then went to North Carolina and saw a pastor friend of mine and saw some other friends. And then went to Smoky Mountains and hiked in there with my sons and family, and then moved on. But the Keys were beautiful. I'd like to go back, but I don't know when. There's other places I want to see before I go back there. But it was pretty. It was very, as I said, like glass. It was calm and peaceful, and nothing like the Gulf of Mexico. So, or like Galveston.
Right. Did you guys get out in the water at all?
We did. We went snorkeling, and we two different places. One right as you kind of get on the Keys. I forgot the name of the Fort Pickens. I was up. I'll think of it since we're off there. But it went out. There's a sunken Christ statue about 10 yards down, and we went out snorkeling there. First time we'd been snorkeling, but it was just clear and beautiful. And one of my daughters just look underwater and start giggling because it's like in a saltwater aquarium. We're just swimming with these beautiful fish. It was beautiful, and took my GoPro and took a bunch of video and photos, and it was a great experience. Then we did actually in the Key West as well, but the water was more murky than it was at the other part, probably from a lot of traffic.
Right.
But yeah, we got on the water and went snorkeling and swimming out there in the reefs. It was neat, a great experience.
That's
I recommend it highly.
Dude. That's amazing.
Yeah.
No, I want to go. We're not that far, but yeah, next time you come through Nash, man, bring your.
Oh, for sure.
We do this really cool, like 45-minute tour. It's a real meager farm, kind of like
And you're a beekeeper. I would love that.
Oh yeah, dude. Some kids
hives do you have?
Like to put suits on. We have little kid suits, and we can tape them up with duct tape to make sure they don't get stung. And then we take them all the way back to the house, make sure.
Oh, my kids would love that.
Follow us, because I don't
Do you
want
get a lot of honey?
Get stung on their first try because it can put you off. You will get stung eventually. I've been stung.
Oh yeah.
I've been stung hundreds of times now, but when you first.
Do you put on the bee suits now, or do you just go out there and hope for the best?
No, I can't. My bees are on the wilder side, and they'll light you up. They will light you up. Too. But some people have really gentle, calm bees, and some of them
not yours
can. Some of these dudes can get in their bees with no gear. My bees are a little bit more uppity. No, we had a great honey crop last time. That's part of what we do at the farm is make toast for everybody or biscuit.
Oh, yum!
Let them try the wild honey out here.
How long you been on that farm? How long you had that property?
This will be our 4th year? Yeah, this will be our 4th year in May.
Very cool. Yeah, I would love that. I would love to find a spot someday. For now, we live in the hustle and bustle of DFW that's growing gangbusters.
Oh, yeah. What city?
Gangbusters. So we live in Prosper, Salina, so north of Frisco.
Oh,
so you remember where Frisco is? So Salina will be the 3rd biggest city in DFW because it has the land mass for it. So it's just growing. So my kids are in Prosper. So Prosper School District, we live officially in the city of Salina. But we stayed in this area. When I first got married, we lived out in the Wiley area, and then moved out here 7.5+ years ago.
Yeah.
But it's been nice. It's a good place. But 5 acres and a spread with some bees would be really, really nice.
Yes.
I would like the quietness of that.
Yes. Yes. Man, I drove.
Do you miss Texas, or you like Tennessee enough that you're not coming back?
If I did live in Texas, I would definitely live in the hill country in Austin.
Yeah.
I think that land out there is just unreal, how beautiful it is. But I will tell you, everybody's different. So I realize it's less criticism. It's more about just how I felt. But the concrete sprawl in Arlington really started affecting me. I can't describe it to you, man, but it was almost like affecting me in a physiological way. I don't know, but it was just so much concrete. It literally started messing with my brain. And I was like, I need green spaces, So when we got here to Nashville, we specifically, even for rent houses, we looked for places that had land just so we could have just some space. But yeah, I mean, I grew up in the suburbs. I was a suburb
Yeah.
kid until we moved away. So I guess I lived in the suburbs for 30 years. But I just really felt this overwhelming sense and desire artistically to have just some land and some space so I could walk
Hmm.
around in some green spaces and think, so the concrete and
That's
I think
important.
everybody's wired differently. So I'm not making a value judge. So like a lot of people love New York and I love to visit New York, but it's wall to wall concrete, like I couldn't live there,
No.
but I love to visit and like go to Broadway and walk around, go to Times Square. Like I love it. Like I could stay there for a month, but after a month of that, I'd be like, it's been amazing. It's the greatest city in the world. Get me out of here.
Yeah. No, I think that's one of the reasons I think we take big road trips in the summertime. We'll be on the road for six weeks or so, seeing national parks, and it's just away from everything. Going to Yellowstone, and it was no cell service for 3 days. You couldn't see anything. It was like it was nice. It was a nice thing. Like the world can come to an end, and that'd be fine. They don't need me, so it's okay. It's okay. But it's. I think that's part of the. Let's go and reset, reground in the nature, and then we'll come back. But we live in an HOA and neighborhood, and my kids have a lot of friends nearby, which is nice.
Yes.
But
Well,
someday I think we'll be somewhere else.
yeah, it's
Somewhere
all
with a little
it's
more
all
land,
trade offs.
quieter.
Yeah, it's all trade offs.
Yeah.
So we lived out in the country. We were a homeschool family, and I think my kids didn't have as high quality of like friendships and relationships long term as your kids did. So it's all trade offs, man. Like you gain things.
knows?
Like we were really tight as a family because like we were kind of all we had at times, and
Yeah.
but at the same time, man, you need good friends, and suburbs and everything really close together allows you to have that. So there's no right or wrong, man. It's just all like it's
No.
all like feeling your way through life, But I do,
This side of heaven, it's going to be different.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's cool, dude.
That's-
Well, yeah. If you come through Nashville,
I will definitely look you up.
I will say,
Same go. If you come through DFW, let me know. I want to visit in person.
yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
drove through Frisco, and it blew me away, man. Like it's literally you can see where downtown is. That it's gonna have a skyline at some point. It's gonna
It's
gonna
crazy.
look like Fort Worth or Dallas with giant skyscrapers.
It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
It's growing.
It's wild.
The Universal Studios is putting in one of their places in Frisco now.
Yeah.
So it's like which is great. I mean that's good, but progress.
Yeah.
Progress. So which is I mean it's a good thing.
Yeah.
But
It was wild because I hadn't been through there since it started building up. But I mean, it has the potential to have a bigger skyline than Fort Worth. I mean, it's just going to be.
It is. We lived in Frisco in '84 on 27 acres in downtown Frisco. So it was one of my family did just for 1 year. We rented a house in the country, and it was nothing.
Yeah.
And now it's quite different.
That's great.
But
Crazy.
it's interesting.
Yeah.
But
And then how long does it take you to get to Dallas?
it depends on what time I go. We drove our bus yesterday. Well, yesterday coming back. When did we go through? Went through a few days ago. Friday morning we drove through, and I had no traffic going down the tollway. So we live on the tollway for the most part. And so we got to downtown Dallas in like 40 minutes from our house, which isn't
Wow.
bad. And this is on a Friday at 9 in the morning. So I'm like, okay, that wasn't terrible. Maybe that's a lot of people were working remotely on Friday. Maybe the traffic's not as bad anymore, but it's not terrible. I mean, we live, many, many cities from downtown, but it just flows with unfortunately, the tollway likes to take our money. But yeah, it's not terrible. If I had to get somewhere, I'm near arteries. I can get there fast-ish. But it would be nice to have 15 acres and some bees. There was a guy in our neighborhood who had a whole bunch of beehives out in the outskirts of the neighborhood, and someone sprayed some pesticides all over and killed every one of them. Like nearby, just the wind blew it on and knocked them all off. And that was the end. It's kind of sad. I'm like, all the bees are gone. I'm like, what? But
Yeah. There's a guy I know here. Same
Did
story.
he really?
Sued
Good for him.
Monsanto and won his lawsuit. And yeah, he won his lawsuit. But yeah, they killed all his bees, man. And they're supposed to tell
no, they
you
won't.
when they're spraying, and they won't. They won't. And but yeah, he got all of his court costs back, and they
But the
replaced all
pain
his
of having to
hives, and
sue
he got
them,
like
that's
ten
like
thousand dollars or something.
some people won't even
Um,
bother because it's not worth even fighting. So I think they know
oh
that. That's why they don't tell you, oh, by the way, we're spraying next week. But it's kind of hard. I mean, it's, yeah.
yeah. Well, what's even crazier, and you'll laugh at me, but like you actually,
Really?
the way that they act is more like a mammal, and you actually fall in love with like you would a dog or a cat or a
That's
cow
cool.
that you really care about. Like they have personalities, and uh, you end up caring about them. And so, like, dude, if like somebody sprayed my bees, it would be
How
devastating.
many hives do you have?
Devast.
Just one big
So
hive, or do you have
if you
multiple
want,
ones?
there, man, I was up to
Oh,
30 last year, and we had a really hard winter, and the
oh.
winter will kill bees. They freeze to death really easy, and so I lost a lot of my hives, and it was really devastating. But
Do you just order them in the mail and they come in a box in
we're
the
back up
mail?
to
Is
about
that the way?
20 now.
I know. I've seen them
You can,
humming from a
believe it or
mail
not.
person once. Like, oh, that
That's
sounds
like,
exciting.
yep.
Yes, I heard the package of
So
bees. It
you
was
actually
awesome.
saw a
And the
package of
postal.
bees?
This is before I went to SMU, but I just remember saying, "Oh wow, that's amazing!" And like, yeah, someone mailing some bees. So it was pretty cool. Like that's
Yeah,
oh yeah,
yeah. They'll still do that, man. It's legal. Very surprised, but they're it's
oh yeah,
safe,
it was
and yeah,
buzzing. So
literally,
like,
if you held
what's
that
in
package, it
that?
would have been vibrating. I mean, they, yeah, they have power. Like with the bee power of them together is nuts. But no, I've never ordered anything over the mail. So what you generally will do is you'll
Yeah,
get
a
locked
club.
in. You'll find there's always a beekeeping community anywhere you go. Yeah, you get locked in with a club, and then you find out who's selling bees. And a lot of people, some people have their outfits just to raise bees and
Okay.
help them procreate and give them to other,
Like,
not
what does
give
it cost
them
to buy
for
a
pretty
beehive?
decent money, but so
Talking like hundreds of dollars? Are we talking?
um like for
Oh, is
the
that what you would
equipment
buy
and
from someone?
everything,
They'd
like
set you up with like,
equipment with
here's the
bees and
house they're in
everything.
now. Just they're ready to go.
Well, what you would usually do is
Okay.
they would put it in a little temporary box with some frame, and you would actually give that other guy or girl some frames to replace their frames that they gave you. And you take that temporary box and you walk it to the equipment that you
Oh
had
wow.
prepared, and you would take those frames and stick them in with the bees on them. And then you would shake the box. Some bees are not lazy, but they like to hang in the box. You'd shake the box out, and then take that box back to the beekeeper. So they let you borrow some gear. You get your bees in your gear, then you take their gear back. But to get a hive, there's a big, beautiful Amish community here, and there's a couple of guys that make beehives from scratch, and they're not painted. So you could get a full hive going with the Amish for like 20
Another
bucks
zero.
plus paint. I'm sorry, 200 bucks. My bad. 200 bucks plus paint. And then yeah, the bees would cost you
Oh, that's not terrible.
between
Huh.
$100 and $200. So if you went like high end, I would say probably between
Okay. That's not
three
bad.
and $500 to get going. But the tricky part about it is it's a bit real steep learning curve, so you wouldn't just want to do one hive. I
Because you
try to
might
tell
lose
people
one or
to
two
do
and you still have some.
more. That's what I try to tell people
Yeah.
to do. That's right. And then the way bees repopulate is they beef up their numbers, and they get their box so thick, and then they lay extra queen cells. Half of them blow town. So what you can do is you can watch them, and when they get to that level, you just take half, put them in another
Okay.
box. So you can grow your own bees with the bees
That's
you
cool.
have, and we do a lot of that. So once you have 3 or 4 hives, different queens, different breeds or whatever, you can kind of just start to, in the spring when
Yeah.
they try to beef up their numbers and leave, you can just it's called doing a split. So instead of letting half of them leave
Just
and
help them
swarm
out.
out, you split them and put them in a new box, and then you
That's cool.
you keep
My
the
neighbors
bees
wouldn't like
on
that if I put
keep
one in
the
our
bees on
backyard,
your
so I'd have
farm
to
that
have
way.
a little more
Yeah.
room. Otherwise, they might not talk to me again. Um,
Yeah, no, that'd be interesting to look in the fine print of your HOA, because a lot of people have bees in the
Yeah.
suburbs, and they
I
do
will have to
just
look into
fine.
that.
So there's actually kind of a, yeah, it would scare people though.
Like country
Even
singing,
my
or like
country
country
neighbor
meaning like
doesn't like
hick?
the bees.
Okay, not like a country singer.
Yeah, my hick neighbor, and my bee yard's really far from them.
Like,
They're
well,
like,
plant
well,
flowers.
it's just a lot of
Yeah,
bees. I'm like,
you have a lot of flowers and other plants around
yeah,
there,
they're
so
not
they
hurting you, man.
help each other out.
Man, I didn't get to it this year, but next year for sure I'm going to do it. I have a tiller, and my
Oh,
wife
fun.
bought me this 100-pound bag of buckwheat. And buckwheat is really crazy flower, but
Yep.
it grows up. It's real stocky, but it has a ton of flowers on it.
Nice.
Bees freak out on buckwheat. So I'm going to till up a huge plot and just put some sprinklers out and grow basically
That'd be
a
awesome.
medium-sized field of buckwheat and just see what they do. But you can, like how, you know
Yeah.
how guys who have like deer leases, they do feed plots and food plots. They put certain plots of food out. You can do the same thing with bees. You can cultivate your land around your bees where
And honey tastes differently
you're
too, depending
taking
on what
care
you
of
feed them.
feeding them naturally, organically.
which is awesome.
Correct. That's correct. Yeah, we have kind of mutt honey out here because they just gather what's ever wild. So we have a lot of poplar trees out here, and actually you can get a lot of nectar from poplar. We have this weird kind of lavender flower called dead nettle. We have clover. We have a lot of weird stuff, but yeah, they mutt all that nectar together and make a very unique flavor profile naturally based on what they can grab. But a lot of people put their hives
Yeah.
on the edge of big farmland, and they do time it. They make friends with the farmers because there are some good farmers. There's Monsanto. And there's farmers that actually care, but the some of these farmers will go out of their way to tell beekeepers when they're going to spray or whatever, and so and then the farmers will leave their bees locked up until
Do
there's
they
like a
pick up
good
their bees, or
rain
they just
that,
cover
like,
them up
kinda
and don't let them
washes all
out?
that crap off the. Your
Yeah.
equipment is such that they go home every night. They all go home and they go in the hive and they sleep in
Stay.
the hive. They don't
Yeah.
sleep, but they go more dormant in the hive at night. So then you can sneak out there, and you have all of them have doors and locks, and so you just walk out sneak up on them and just close the doors, and then you have them locked up. And then you can, if you had to leave them locked up for a long time, there's ways that you can give them food and feed them like sugar water and stuff to sustain them
No,
while
probably
they're
not.
locked up, and they don't like it. They want to fly, but there are ways to keep them safe and shut away while, if you're worried about pesticides or you're worried about whatever it is that may be. And I actually too, I know we got to go, but what a lot of people do to make money, if it's real hard to make a living doing bees, it's just not a lot of margin. It's like raising chickens.
More so now, but yeah.
Make 3 cents per egg or whatever.
I said a little more so now.
So
I think
what
eggs
we've
went
got-
up and crossed for a little bit,
what?
but maybe they're coming down.
Yeah, no, you're right, man. For a while there,
It did.
we
Anyway,
were
what you're
planting-
saying,
we had
sorry, cut you
chickens,
off.
Man, it got nuts. Oh well, some guys that just want to keep bees and that's all they want to do, they'll actually lock all their bees up, put them on a truck, and ratchet strap them
Almonds.
down, and they'll drive to California
Yep.
and they'll park them on the edge of an almond crop or whatever. And so they're migrant, and the bees migrate, and they rent their bees to these almond farmers, and the bees do fine. They know you moved them, so they'll come out and they'll
That's
figure
crazy.
out where they're at, and they'll GPS coordinate to a new place in California, and then they'll go work all the almond trees, and they'll come back.
Strap them
And
back
then
down.
when that season's over, these guys will put them back on it.
It's interesting.
Yeah, put them back
It's
on the truck
fascinating.
and take them
So
back
you
home.
fell into
so,
the bee world. Another thing I have to do.
Yeah.
We love honey, so honey's good for you, especially if
Yeah.
you have allergies. If you eat local honey, it's great for you. So that's, which I'm sure you do.
It is, yeah. Yeah, if it only works, so you guys would need to find someone that does it local because they're doing mutt honey like I am, but their bees right around the corner from you are pulling all of the allergens, all the giving you allergies, they're pulling all that into their honey, and when they apply those
I know, it's
enzymes
great.
and everything,
It's amazing.
eating it, it's just like taking allergy shots, Yeah.
Well, it was an honor, a pleasure visiting with you, man. It's been too long, and let me know if you want to, if I can come out and help you on another film or something. I would love to find a way to jump in and work with you. So I will do it in a heartbeat. You got to let me know. I'll put things on hold and come work with you on the next big project.
I have to see this legendary bus just so I can gawk at it. Tell you, like,
it's fun.
Awesome
it's fun to pull up at an RV park, like a high-end RV park, and I'm parked next to a, I don't know, $500,000, $2 million RV of some sort, and they come out and said, "I like your rig." They'll come and shake my hand, and I'm like, "I like yours," and he goes, "Yeah, but yours has a story." That's what one guy in the Florida Keys. He had this, one that like a garage will slide out and let a car out from the bottom of it, like a fancy sports car. And he's like, "Yeah, I like your rig." And I'm like, "I was saying the same thing about yours." And he goes, "Yeah, yours has a story." And he shook my hand and walked off. And I'm like, "Mine does. Mine was a school bus a few years ago." But it's fun. It's perfect for us. We designed every inch of it to fit our family. And I think I don't know if I didn't probably tell you, but like half a year ago, my youngest looked at me and said, "Hey, Dad, when you and Mom die, who gets the bus?" Which I thought was awesome. I'm like, I like where you're going. It's a little dark, but I do like where you're going. Just like, I'm like, I sure hope it's around then. I hope it's still driving. I hope it's still... I had put in a Tesla battery inside of it, and long story short, the thing shorted out and blew up. But it blew up after I got it out of the bus. So it was one of those, that was going to run all my household power inside there, and I just went in one day and smelled this weird smell and realized it was off-gassing, and I took it out and put it in a wagon next to the side of our house, and it melted the windows on the side of our house. It blew up, and just, it's scary, but came that close to losing everything I'd built on it. It was a God thing it didn't happen, but it scared the tar out of me. But yeah, it's like, it works for us. It works for us to make memories and to travel and to see places. Like this summer, we're planning to go to like Zion National Park and Arches, then over to Yosemite and up to the big trees of California, up the Oregon coast, and then shoot across to Banff and Jasper National Park. It's just a lot of miles, a lot of driving. Lord willing, the bus will do fine. But make some memories, see some amazing places of God's creation while we're all still together. And who knows? It's been fun. It's been a fun experience to see places that I've never seen and would love to see again, but at least see the next one. And at some point we'll go up to like Maine and East Coast, but this year we're going west. Cool. Now that COVID's a little bit less crazy and the states are a little bit more open now. And Canada's open, so we can get into Canada. But it's pretty sweet.
So amazing. I mean, dude.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Really quick before we go.
So
you have like
I was going to set that up.
Array?
I have.
Like
I'll show you when I show you. It's a 40-foot bus. So the top, I was going to put solar panels on top, and I could cover the whole entire thing with solar, but I have to put like a platform like 2 feet above the top and build a big frame. I didn't. The last thing I did was added on a separate alternator charger. So when I'm driving, because for the most part we drive to an RV park, and when I'm driving, it's charging the battery bank. So I have 200 amp hour batteries inside, and have I put a mini split air conditioning inside. It has what those are, like the Mr. Cool on this. So I put one in the outdoor, the outside part for the mini split is bolted underneath the driver's seat. So I just bolt. I'm gonna use every inch of this bus, and I have air conditioning in the front, air conditioning in the back. That run when I'm plugged into power, like at an RV park. When I'm driving, I have air conditionings that run off the engine that are built into the school bus.
Sure.
I don't know if you rode a school bus much as a kid or not. But yeah, so I wanted to put solar, and I thought about it.
I did.
But maybe over time, it's worth putting money into it and do it, because solar is nice, but you kind of need the battery pack to run off the solar. So when you're during the day, you're charging up everything. I'll probably put one or two, 400 amp hour or big panels on the very back just to kind of run the fridge constantly inside, so we don't have to worry about plugging in. But it won't run the air conditioning. That's the biggest thing. If we're going somewhere and we travel in the summertime, it's hot. We kind of want AC, so it'd make it a little cooler. But solar panel at some point, but right now, no. I just have a separate feed off the alternator. So when the engine's actually running, it charges the batteries. And when it drops down below like 13 volts, it turns off the alternator battery pack. So it's not draining my starter batteries on the bus. But I've learned a lot. I learned a lot of electrical, a lot of.
Yeah.
I went to
Sure.
YouTube University on how to build a bus and teach myself plumbing, teach myself electrical, teach myself. It's just, but now it's easy. I could do another one easily now that I've done it. It's just the first time going, what am I? It couldn't be that hard. If someone else can do it, I can do it. But that's like you. I mean, you can make this thing happen.
Yes. So what happened? Was there any reason why the Tesla battery?
I don't know. It was a new one. I got it
overheated
from. It was
and-
used. It was an eBay buy. A friend of mine told me, "Hey, you can do this," and he lives off the grid, and he said has solar panels and charges up the batteries during the day. So I designed the bus for a 24 volt, which is what Tesla batteries are. It's kind of funny. They have 24 volt system, but they have a separate car battery to run the 12 volt stuff, which is kind of interesting on a Tesla. So it was. I had this weird, vivid dream the night before, and I knew I was. It was like a week before we left on our big trip in 2021. I bought it in November of 2020, and we hit the road in June of 2021. So I had like 6 months to put that whole thing together. And I had this vivid dream about this electrical issues, and I woke up, and Amanda, my wife's like, "Hey, you look horrible." I'm like, "Yeah, I just had this weird dream. It was something strange." So I pulled the bus up out front of our house to work on it. It just shorted somehow. One of the cells shorted. And you've seen videos of this Tesla. I don't know if you have a Tesla, but you've seen videos of like them burning. So when they go, they go. And I don't know if it was a bad cell from the one I bought. Maybe it was from a wreck and was injured. I don't know. There's a lot of unknowns. All I do know is I knew as soon as I was tracing the smell. I'm like, what's that sweet smell? And I traced it back to the battery that was screwed on the wall, and I had it all built up underneath my electrical panel and everything. And I knew I had to get it out of the bus. I'm unscrewing everything, and it's heavy, sucker. So I go and put it in a wagon and park it on a driveway. And I'm like, no, if something happens, I don't want it next to our house. So I drove that on the side of our house next to the trash cans, which melted and burned. And they're shooting up, 20 feet up in the air. And the one battery pack just caught fire. And I was sitting in a laptop looking up, what do you do with an off-gassing battery? And then it lit fire. And my dog, we have this awesome dog that I trained not to bark, but he started freaking out and barking and trying to get my attention. I look back, and there's a slight glow from the battery. And then it blew up like a bomb going off. And we're like, drop down. I run and bang on the door next to the neighbor's house going, because I knew some kids were home, younger. And I'm like, get out of your house, because I thought the whole neighborhood was going to burn down. It scared me so bad. But it was just a God thing that got it out of the bus, because it would have burned everything I'd worked on. It would have burned to the ground. So.
Well.
Oh, it's scary.
I'm glad you're okay,
So
man.
the battery I have now is another looking
great.
battery. I replaced it, but it's supposedly one that's not from a wrecked Tesla. So who knows? Who knows? A Tesla would be nice. That's a cheap way of putting a lot of power.
Wow.
Because they go through and they lose. They're back to like 80% of the charge, and so they'll just replace them. That's still a lot of battery. You can still do a lot with that. But yeah.
Yeah. Now, if you did have a battery of like a
Powerwall, talking about the Tesla ones,
power tower or something.
Yeah, you can't buy those just by themselves.
Oh,
you
yeah,
have to go through like hooked up to your house. There's a guy named Thomas Massey, who's a congressman from Kentucky. I don't know if you know Massey or not. He great guy. He went to MIT and has all these patents, and he's a congressman from Kentucky. But he built his whole house off grid, and he bought wrecked Tesla batteries, because if you buy a Powerwall, you have to be tied into the grid, and he didn't want to be tied in at all. So it is doable, but I couldn't get that one. There are other batteries that are good. There's some companies that do ones for RVs. So this one I bought, it was an Amazon one, but it's from the same factory with all these other ones. And I'm like, it looks good.
I see. Now, if you did have that lithium array working, could you run your air conditioner?
That's the
for
goal.
a period of time,
I had it
could
hooked
you
up
not?
that way, and I didn't have enough power. After the Tesla died, I switched out to their AGM batteries. So like car batteries, it's not the it's just different technology. It's not lithium, and I hooked up, and it wouldn't last enough. So in the next week or so, I need to run a test again. So I have two different. My air conditioning, there's too much details. My air conditioning is a 50 amp or 240 volt, 220. So it takes two power lines, so a positive on both sides and a negative and a neutral. I did that for the unit, the mini split. So it's one big unit and has two different vents that cool the bus off. I did that because actually that takes less power than a 110 or 120 power. So I did it for power consumption. I would do a mini split in a heartbeat if you want to redo air conditioning on your RV, your trailer. Mini splits are awesome. They're quiet as all get out. That's one thing. We rented a Class C motorhome, went through Grand Canyon in 2017, and we realized we want to do RVs. RVs are awesome, but it was drafty and we're not insulated well. So I spray foamed insulation the whole entire bus, so it's insulated to the hilt. So it's good. But the mini split's been nice, and I can run it off the batteries for a time, but not too terribly long. That's the problem. I might be able to get an hour maybe out of it, but that's not going to be enough. But anyway.
Dude, I can't wait to see the bus, man.
It's pretty sweet.
It sounds amazing.
Brent, thanks for your time, brother.
Yeah,
it's been a pleasure talking to you and with you. And I look forward to working with you whenever that next time is, because I want to totally get back into this, and I'm so happy that you're actually making it happen for you and your family. But I know about that.
A lot of crazy up and downs, man, for sure. Yeah. But dude, yeah, it's been great to connect, man. And,
for sure, man.
All of me for coming through Nashville. I want to see this bus.
Brent, take care, man. God bless.
All right,
talk to you soon. Of course. No, thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks again for everything.
Bye.